Amidst the crowd in a hospital waiting room, filled with anxious faces and the scent of medicine, a whispered plea changed everything forever. An elderly woman, frail and weak, looked at a battle-hardened Navy SEAL and spoke words that would transform into the most emotional story of kindness, family, and salvation you will ever hear. Stay until the end, because this true story will touch your heart and make you think about your own family. It was a regular Tuesday afternoon at the VA hospital in San Diego, California. The place was filled with veterans, families, and weary doctors rushing from one room to the next. Fluorescent lights buzzed loudly overhead. Among all these people stood Marcus Kane, a 34-year-old Navy SEAL who had just returned from his 8th dangerous overseas mission. He was 6 feet 3 inches, tall, broad-shouldered, sharp-eyed, and had a face that showed years of discipline and courage. His uniform was still covered in the dust of travel. He was waiting for his routine medical checkup when his life took an unexpected turn. Then he saw her. An 87-year-old woman named Eleanor Hayes. She wore an old, faded blue sweater that looked older than it was. Her white hair was neatly combed, but her hands were trembling as she held a small black and white photograph of her late husband. Tears were falling down her wrinkled cheeks. She looked lost, frightened, and completely alone. In the noisy crowd, she had no son, no daughter, no grandchildren. She had come alone for a very serious heart consultation, and the doctors had already told her twice that they needed a family member's signature for the risky surgery scheduled for the next week. Eleanor felt desperate. She had begged the nurses, but the hospital rules were strict. That's when she saw him. Something inside her told her that this tall, strong man might be her last hope. She slowly made her way toward him, her steps shaky. Her frail, cold fingers gently grabbed his muscular arm. Marcus looked down, surprised at first. Before he could say anything, Eleanor whispered in a weak, broken voice that only he could hear. "Please, pretend you're my grandson, just for today. Please. My real family stopped coming months ago. If I'm alone, the doctors won't listen to me. I don't want to die alone." These words struck Marcus like a bullet. In his 12 years as a Navy SEAL, he had faced enemy fire, rescued hostages from dangerous places, and seen death more times than he cared to remember. But this frail old woman's desperate plea touched a place in his heart that no war had ever reached. He looked directly into her tear-filled eyes, full of fear and loneliness. At that moment, the protector inside him awakened. Without thinking, twice, Marcus placed his large, warm hand on her trembling fingers, and, loud enough for the nurses and patients around to hear, he said, "Don't worry, Grandma, I'm right here. Your grandson Marcus is here. Everything will be all right." Eleanor's face changed in an instant. Fear melted away, and a small, beautiful smile appeared on her lips. She hugged his strong arm tightly, as if a small child who had finally found safety. The people in the waiting room began whispering to each other. The nurses looked up in surprise. Everyone stared at this giant, tough-looking man with the sweet, elderly woman. But Marcus didn't care about the stares. He gently held Eleanor's arm and walked with her to the doctor's office as if he had done it 1,000 times before. Inside, the clean, white examination room, Dr. Patel, a kind and experienced doctor, carefully reviewed Eleanor's medical files. "Mrs. Hayes, your heart valves are weakening. We need to perform surgery next week, but we need a family member's consent and signature." Eleanor looked frightened again and squeezed Marcus's hand. Without hesitation, Marcus stood tall, as if facing his commander, and said, "I'm her grandson, Doctor. My name is Marcus Kane. Whatever my grandmother needs, surgery, money, time, medicine, or anything else, I'll take care of it. Just tell me where to sign. I'm not going anywhere." Dr. Patel looked at Marcus for a long moment, then saw the tears of joy in Eleanor's eyes. He nodded with a smile. The paperwork was completed right there. For the first time in years, Eleanor felt someone was truly fighting for her. She burst into tears of relief. After the meeting, Marcus took her to the hospital cafeteria. He bought her a warm cup of coffee, a fresh muffin, and spent more than 3 hours listening to her life story. Eleanor told him everything in a soft, emotional voice. After her beloved husband Robert died from cancer, she had been a widow for 15 years. She had 2 children, one son, David, who lived just 2 hours away in Los Angeles, and a daughter, Lisa, who lived in New York. David hadn't come to see her in 8 months. Lisa only called when she needed money. Her grandchildren sent quick birthday messages once a year, and that was it. "I don't want to die alone in this cold hospital room," Eleanor whispered, taking a sip of her coffee. "That's why I asked a stranger to pretend to be my grandson. I'm so sorry for lying to you." Marcus listened in silence, but deep inside, his blood boiled with anger. He had seen terrible things in war, but this kind of family neglect hurt him more than any enemy could. That night, in his small apartment near the military base, Marcus couldn't sleep. He opened his laptop and used his SEAL training to gather information. He found David's full address, phone number, workplace, and even his social media profiles. The more he read, the more determined he became. The next morning, at 7 a.m., Marcus returned to the hospital. He brought fresh flowers, homemade soup, and a warm blanket for Eleanor. The nurses had already started calling him the miracle grandson. Eleanor's face lit up like the sun every time she saw him. For the next 6 days, Marcus became the perfect grandson. He read her favorite Bible stories out loud, brought her favorite chocolate ice cream even at 10 p.m., sang old love songs with her, and made her laugh with funny military stories from his deployments. The entire hospital floor began to follow their beautiful story. Finally, surgery day arrived. Eleanor became nervous as they wheeled her toward the operating theater. Marcus held her thin hand tightly until the anesthesia began to work. He looked into her eyes and promised, "When you wake up, I'll be right here, Grandma. I've never broken a promise, and I won't now. You're not alone." The surgery lasted 7 long and tense hours. Marcus paced the waiting room like a caged lion. Other families offered him coffee and prayed with him. A young mother told him, "You're a real hero, sir." Marcus just nodded silently. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like he was doing the most important thing in his life. Finally, the surgeon came out, and the whole room held its breath. The surgery was a success. She's stable now. The truth is, she had someone strong fighting for her, and that gave her the extra strength to survive. Marcus dropped to his knees in silent prayer. The next morning, when Eleanor opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was Marcus sitting right next to her, holding her hand. "My grandson saved me," she proudly told every nurse and doctor. The entire ward smiled and was moved. Thanks to Marcus, David and Lisa completely changed their ways. They started visiting their mother every month. grandchildren started coming to sleep over. The house that once felt silent and empty now echoed with laughter, stories, and love. 2 beautiful years passed just like that. Eleanor grew weaker, but she was far happier in her life than she had ever been. On a peaceful Sunday morning, surrounded by her whole family and with Marcus holding her hand, she closed her eyes for the last time at the age of 89. In her will, she left only one special thing for Marcus, a handwritten letter. It said, "To my true grandson, who answered the desperate whisper of an old woman, thank you for giving me the best 2 years of my life. My dear boy, I'll wait for you in heaven. I love you." One rainy afternoon, Marcus stood at Eleanor's grave in his full Navy SEAL dress uniform. Tears mixed with the rain on his face as he saluted her gravestone and whispered, "Mission complete, Grandma. Rest in peace." Even today, Marcus visits her grave every month. He started a charity in Eleanor's name to help lonely seniors and veterans who lack family support. Thousands of elderly people have received help, love, and care because an old woman had the courage to whisper to a stranger in a hospital waiting room. So, the next time you see someone who looks lonely or afraid, remember this story. You never know when your small act of kindness might become someone's entire world. A whisper can build a stronger family than blood. And sometimes, the toughest warriors on this earth have the biggest, softest hearts. This is a powerful story about how a Navy SEAL answered an old woman's desperate whisper and gave the entire world a voice